Hello, I'm Greg Euland, Marketing Director at Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected, the podcast with best practices and ideas to help navigate what is happening in the automotive retail industry and the world today. As the COVID-19 virus continues to change our world and how we live and work daily, this podcast discusses ways to continue operating in this unprecedented social environment. On today's episode, we have with us Gary Reinhardt, Product Manager at Reynolds & Reynolds. Gary, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, absolutely. So Gary, today I'm hoping to talk about maybe some places that dealerships can either reduce expenses or possibly find some money that might be a little bit of low-hanging fruit, some easy places to look, common places to look. Before we get there though, I'd like to get your perspective on keeping employees on board. Is that something, in today's environment that's possible, I guess?
Well, it's certainly possible. For most dealers, it may come down to simply evaluating who the core people are they need and do they have people that they can use in other areas. But primarily, it's going to come down to cash flow and how the business is doing in the depressed economy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Any tips at all for evaluating that?
Well, I would start by looking at your receivables, for example. What does your contract in transit look like? Are there ways that we can get money that's owed to the dealership in as quickly as possible so that we have that cash flow? It could be contracts in transit. It could be maybe I'm going to floor some vehicles that I didn't choose to floor when I took them into inventory to get some money, cash flow that way. It could be in receivables, in more aggressively trying to track down businesses or customers who owe the dealership money. I'm sure that a lot of this is being done already, but looking at it in the context of, to the degree that we can improve our cash flow situation, it gives us options to maybe keep some people that we might normally have to furlough or let go, for the short term, just because this has gone on longer than any of us have expected.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Another thing that I've seen out there is looking at wholesale policy and things like that. I don't know if you've seen anything or heard from dealers as far as what they're doing when it comes to options for wholesaling vehicles.
There's a couple of options with wholesaling. First of all, again, if the goal is to get as much money in, maybe there's some vehicles that I normally would keep on the lot that I could go ahead and wholesale and get that cash flow in. On the other side of it, if cash flow is pretty solid right now, we're just not bringing in a lot of new business. Maybe, service and parts are doing okay, but we're not selling a lot of vehicles. We could actually decide to keep vehicles on the lot in anticipation of the end of the quarantine. So in that scenario, it's likely that there were a lot of people out there that were maybe thinking about buying a new car, upgrading their vehicle before all of this happened. When things return to normal, we all know it won't happen overnight. It's going to take a while for people to replenish their bank accounts and whatever else, and there may be a greater market for vehicles that we might normally wholesale simply because they're better than the vehicle that the person has. So instead of buying a nice new car, which is what they wanted to do, they need a new vehicle. So some of those wholesale vehicles, there might be a greater market for those when this is over.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about, Gary, anything in the back end of the store too? Any places to look there that might be worth some time?
Well, from a service standpoint, certainly as work comes in, anything that I can do to optimize my people so that I can get as much work done. So maybe with a little bit finer tooth comb, looking at everyone who comes in or everyone who schedules an appointment to make sure that we are truly operating at the highest capacity possible would be one way to get more money into the dealership. Over on the parts side, there's a lot of parts companies out there, you know, body shops, whatever, who there might be a greater demand for parts, and whereas that may not have been a focus, it could be an opportunity where you would reach out and maybe expand your wholesale parts business. Maybe someone who was a used car salesman, let's say, in the past, before things got slow, maybe they would be fine with driving a parts truck, you know, if we expand that business. So you just got to kind of think out of the box and look at your area and your market and your personal situation to find out, you know, what can I do? What do I need to do to survive in the long haul and to be in the best position possible when things do start getting back to normal?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Gary, I definitely appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your day to chat. While I have you, and while we have the audience too, is there anything else that that you would want to touch on, or anything you want to say?
Um, you know, there are opportunities throughout the dealership to look at, you know, both receivables and to some degree payables. You really need to just tighten your belt and, you know, let's say on the receivables, we talked about that in the beginning of the conversation. Maybe as a policy, you've never charged any finance charges, right, for the customers that slow pay. And while, you know, you want to be a nice person in these difficult times and give people the benefit of whatever you can give them to help them get through as well, the primary responsibility is always the dealership, and things can be done to add focus on areas where there's an opportunity, and that receivable balance is money that is owed to you, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know, we need to get that money in so we can survive. So, you know, I think everyone just needs to figure out what's going to work best for them. You know, some customers, it could even be a parts core inventory. You know, what's, you know, or have we got everything returned to the manufacturer? You know, because that's going to be a credit that you can use against the parts you buy from the manufacturer. You know, and while all of these things are fairly common, you know, sometimes it helps for someone to just go through a list of things, and it might remind you that, hey, I haven't checked this or that. You know, all of it, you just really need to look holistically at the dealership to make sure that you're doing everything you can do to keep your business where it needs to be.
Yep, very good, very good. Well, Gary, I definitely appreciate you taking time. Thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. This has been Connected. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next episode.